In the heart of Lagos, where the bustling markets hum with the vibrancy of life and the roads are teeming with activity, there was a woman who was both feared and revered. She was known as Iya Ruka in the shadowy corners of the underworld, and Alhaja Ajoke in the sparkling social circles of the city. Her name was whispered with both dread and awe. Iya Ruka, born Asap Faisara Ajoke Elediye, had built an empire, one rooted not in the soft touch of silk or gold, but in the dark and dangerous world of drugs. Her mansion in Okota, Lagos, was a fortress with gates so high that they seemed to touch the sky. From there, she ruled over a network that stretched across Nigeria, dealing in the most potent of poisons, cannabis. In the daylight, she was seen in social gatherings, the Isleage of Blessing Sisters, a prestigious society club. She wore expensive fabrics, radiant jewelry, and smiled the smile of a woman who had it all. But beneath the veneer of respectability, her dealings were far from ordinary. As the years passed, rumors began to spread. Those who were close to her began to disappear without a trace. Disgruntled associates spoke of her iron grip over the drug trade, from the heart of Mushin to the farthest corners of the country. But no one dared challenge her power. In the small, dim-lit alleyways of Mushin, young men with hollow eyes and gaunt faces could often be seen walking the streets, their bodies heavy with the weight of addiction. Some whispered that the drugs came from a powerful queen in Okota, the very same woman who hosted lavish events and wore the finest silk. For years, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, had been hunting her, but their efforts had been futile. Ajoke's operation was clever, her staff was loyal, and her network was vast. The law seemed powerless against her. But on January 1st, 2025, fate would change. The NDLEA, guided by a whisper of intelligence, set their sights on a truck that had been intercepted in the heart of Lagos. It was a white Isuzu, and inside it, the agents found something that would forever mark the beginning of the end for Iya Ruka. The truck was carrying 44 jumbo sacks, each one filled with 1,540 kilograms of imported cannabis, a dangerous substance that could poison the lives of thousands. It was a direct link to Ajoke's operation, and her empire had just been exposed. The truck driver, a man by the name of Abedin Adio, was arrested on the spot. His trembling hands betrayed his fear as he was led away in cuffs, his eyes darting nervously at the operatives who surrounded him. The NDLEA acted swiftly. With their evidence in hand, they stormed the mansion of Iya Ruka in Okota, and there, amidst the glittering chandeliers and opulent decor, they found a woman who had been hiding in plain sight for years. Ajoke sat calmly in her sitting room as the agents burst through the doors, her eyes cold and calculating. The luxury of her surroundings did nothing to soften the iron that lay beneath her skin. She was a queen, but now her reign was over. Alhaja Ajoke, you are under arrest for drug trafficking, the lead officer announced. Her response was a smile, a chilling smile that sent a wave of unease through the room. She was not surprised. Perhaps she had known this day would come. As the agents searched the mansion, they found more evidence of her illegal dealings. Hidden in plain sight, she had disguised her drug empire under the guise of a legitimate business, importing fabrics and shoes from China. But the law had finally caught up with her. For years, Ajoke had operated with impunity, using her charm and influence to outmaneuver the law. She was a master of deception, playing both sides, the socialite and the criminal mastermind. No one had suspected that the same woman who attended high-profile events was the one behind the drug trade in Lagos. Ajoke's arrest sent shockwaves through the city. It was as though a dark cloud had descended upon Lagos, and the people were left to wonder how a woman so powerful could fall. But what they did not know was that her empire was far from over. As the NDLEA officers led her out of the mansion, a new twist emerged in the tale. Just days before, on December 27, 2024, a man named Emeka Emmanuel Mbadiu had been arrested. He was no ordinary man. He was a U.S.-trained filmmaker with connections that stretched across Hollywood and Nollywood. Emeka's arrest had been linked to a separate operation, one that involved the smuggling of a potent cannabis strain known as loud. The shipment had arrived at the Murtala Muhammad International Airport on December 24, 2024, and was concealed in large wooden boxes. Ajoke Elediye James, a trusted associate of Mbadu, had been sent to retrieve the shipment, but his efforts were thwarted when the NDLEA apprehended him at a warehouse in Ajoke estate, Ikeja, where he was caught red-handed with 33 parcels of the dangerous substance. The timing of both arrests was no coincidence. The NDLEA had begun to close in on a network far more powerful than they had initially imagined. What they had discovered was not just a single cartel, but a web of connections that spanned the world. The investigation into Emeka and his associates soon led them back to Iya Ruka. It was clear that she was not only a drug lord in Nigeria, but she was connected to international trafficking rings that smuggled illicit drugs from all corners of the globe. The NDLEA's Director of Media and Advocacy, Femi Babafemi, spoke to the press, revealing the extent of the operation. Ajoke Elediye was not just a drug queenpin in Lagos. She was part of a much larger international network, one that spanned multiple countries, Babafemi stated. The connection between Ajoke and Mbadu was a puzzle that the authorities were determined to solve. What role had the filmmaker played in her operations? Was he a mere accomplice, or was he a key figure in the cartel's global reach? As the investigations deepened, it became apparent that the stakes were higher than anyone had anticipated. The illicit drug trade in Lagos was not just a local issue. It was part of a much larger, more dangerous network that threatened the safety of the entire country. In the weeks that followed, the NDLEA launched a series of operations aimed at dismantling the cartel. Their mission was clear: to bring down Ajoke's empire and expose the full extent of the drug trade that had flourished under her watch. But Ajoke was not one to go down without a fight. From her prison cell, she began to strategize. She had many allies, and she had made a habit of ingratiating herself with the powerful. She had connections in high places, connections that might help her escape this predicament. In her cell, Ajoke's mind raced. She remembered the faces of those who had helped her build her empire, the loyal men and women who had worked for her without question. But now, in the face of the law, it seemed that all of that was coming to an end. It was not just the law she feared. There were others who had been harmed by her actions. Families torn apart by addiction, young men and women lost to the grip of drugs. Her empire had come at a cost, and now the reckoning was at hand. Ajoke's once glorious mansion now sat abandoned, the grandeur of its halls a mere shadow of the empire it had once represented. The gates were no longer open to the powerful and the influential, and the once vibrant social scene had quieted down. Kindly subscribe and on the notification button for more tales. The people of Lagos, once enthralled by her charm, now spoke of her with bitterness. They had seen the darkness that lay beneath the surface of the woman they had admired, and they were left to wonder how many lives had been destroyed in the name of power and wealth. The crackdown on the drug trade continued, and the NDLEA's efforts grew more aggressive. With Ajoke in custody, it was only a matter of time before her network began to unravel. The agents were determined to go after every last one of her associates, and to ensure that her empire would never rise again. As the investigation progressed, the people of Lagos began to take note. They watched as the NDLEA dismantled a drug empire that had once seemed untouchable. It was a reminder that no one, no matter how powerful, could escape justice forever. The arrest of Ajoke marked a turning point in the fight against drug trafficking in Nigeria. It was a message to those who thought they were above the law, that the long arm of justice would eventually catch up with them. Yet, for all the victories, there were still those who believed that the war against drugs was far from over. For every cartel taken down, new ones emerged, often more ruthless than the last. The NDLEA knew that their work was far from finished. Ajoke's fall from grace would become a story passed down through generations, a tale of greed, power, and the inevitable consequences of a life built on darkness. The people of Lagos would remember Iya Ruka, but they would also remember the strength of the law that brought her down. In the years that followed, Lagos would change. The drug trade would not disappear overnight, but the lessons of Ajoke's rise and fall would echo in the hearts of those who had seen the damage caused by her empire. The story of Iya Ruka, the queen of the drug trade, would remain a warning. It would be a story told around campfires, in the streets, and in the quiet corners of homes. It would serve as a reminder that power built on darkness could only last for so long. For Ajoke, the life she had known was over. She would spend the rest of her days behind bars, facing the consequences of her actions. Her mansion would stand as a silent witness to the rise and fall of one of Nigeria's most notorious criminals. But in the heart of Lagos, the fight against drugs continued. The NDLEA would not rest until every last cartel was dismantled and every drug lord was brought to justice. The people of Nigeria had seen the damage that drugs could do, and they were determined to ensure that the story of Iya Ruka was not one that would ever be repeated. In the end, the tale of Ajoke Elediye would be remembered not just as a story of a drug queenpin, but as a cautionary tale, a reminder that no matter how high one might rise, the law is always watching, and justice is inevitable